I don't think I could ever have an experience like that one ever again. Like, I truly feel that that was a once in a lifetime experience, and it has completely changed me.
Welcome to the Woman Angler and Adventurer Podcast, inspiring real women with a passion for fishing and the outdoors to go get their adventure on. Now, here's your host, Master Captain Angie Scott.
All right, everyone, welcome to another episode of the Woman Angler and Adventurer Podcast. I hope and I'm sure you very much enjoyed the last episode I did with Captain Skip. It was probably one of my favorite interviews I've done to date, and we've released over 300 episodes at this point, so that says a lot. And this week, I'm super excited to kind of follow that up with an interview with a lady named Tracy English, who went on one of these adventures. And you'll kind of get a little insight. Not only did she go on one of these adventures, but she's here in the United States and traveled all the way to Australia for this experience. So, Tracy English, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Angie. I appreciate it.
Yeah, so let's start out with just a little bit of your background and kind of introduce the listeners to, how you got into fishing. I know we've kind of traded some information planning for this episode. So I know you've worked in the construction industry for a long time, like 25 years. You've raised...
Yeah, I started when I was like 1.
Yeah, perfect. And
I'm not showing my age at all, 25 years in construction. Yeah.
You've raised 2 amazing daughters, and like all of us, have had to navigate life's ups and downs all throughout that time.
Mm-hmm.
So can you tell us how you discovered fishing just a few years ago, and what made it such a big part of your life now?
Geez, and I'm going to try not to get emotional because I was thinking about this when I was looking at the stuff you'd sent me earlier just to kind of prep.
Yeah.
And I'm a Navy brat. My dad passed away in 2004 from lung and brain cancer. He was a very, very, very long-term smoker. But my dad was a huge fisherman back in the day. Like, he loved to fish, fishing and playing golf, and bowling were my dad's things.
Dad's too.
Yeah. So it's like, I remember, well, I can't remember exactly when it was, but at some point he had bought, a little, like tin boat that he would take out and just go fishing. And I always thought, damn, I kind of want to go out with Dad, but I don't know if I'm going to like that. So, it would have been great to spend some quality time with him. Him being military was not, he was not a very emotionally supportive type person or outwardly loving type guy. So that would have been a great way to connect with him. And I never did it. And I regret that now. But, all these years later, the first time I went fishing was, I think it was like 2012. And I went all out, and we did like the deep sea fishing excursion. And it was in Orange Beach, Alabama. We went with a couple of friends when I was married to my ex-husband. And basically, you had like 30 people on a boat. And this wasn't, it's not deep sea fishing to me at this point after what I just went through. But, you go out and they give you the squid and they have the weights and you just drop it, you're just bottom fishing. Mm-hmm. So that was my first experience, and it was horrifying because I'd say probably 15 minutes in, I I thought I had something. I didn't. I had no clue what I was doing. So I bring up my hook, and there was no bait on it, but I had reeled it up too tight. And I needed to let it out, let the line out a little bit. Well, I was an idiot. Again, not knowing what I'm doing. There's this super heavy weight on it. And I have a hold of the hook in my hand, and I'm like, well, I'll just release the line a little bit. But I didn't grab the weight. So before I know it, I have a giant hook through the first knuckle of my index finger. It just went through the skin, and it went all the way through. Again, not knowing what I'm doing. I'm sitting there going, hello, somebody help me. And my ex-husband was next to me, and I'm like, Brian, dude, I've hooked myself. Like, I don't know what to do. And I'm just thinking, wow, this is disgusting. I have squid guts now in my system. Like, what the hell? Nobody's coming, and he's like, hold on, I think I got something. And I'm like, asshole, stop what you're doing. Come on. I'm like, okay, nobody's helping me. This weight is heavy. So I just ripped the hook out.
Ooh.
Not knowing that you're supposed to cut it and pull it out. I pulled barb right back through my skin, and now I'm like gushing blood. And as I've done this, one of the guys comes up, and he's like, what happened? And I said, I hooked myself, and I was yelling for somebody to help me. Nobody would help me. So he's like holding my arm up in the air, and he's like, come in here with me. And I have something called vasovagal syncope. Several women in my family have it. I don't even know how far back it goes, but basically what it boils down to is when we have super high anxiety, our blood pressure will tank and we pass out. And it's generally pain induced. And I was in a lot of pain. I was scared. I didn't know what was going on. I was bleeding. I don't like blood very much. So he takes me in. I have to lay down as he's wrapping me up. And after that, I wanted to just puke. I had 6 more hours out there. And all I could do was just lay down. And of course, I find out on the trip I just went on there, like, that was the stupidest thing you could do, you idiot. You don't lay down. I was like, thanks, guys. I'm glad you were there for me.
Yeah.
But so after that, I'm like, I don't think fishing's for me. And I didn't care to do it again. Fast forward, I don't know, was it 2020? Well, really 2020, when I divorced in 2019, 2020, I met my boyfriend. His mother has a home with a stocked pond that has catfish and bass, bluegill, and there's something else that I can't think of at the moment. And I just, we had this time, this personal pond that was just hers, and I had the time of my life. Like, we sat out there for hours, and he and I are very competitive. So it was like, okay, who can catch the most? Who's going to catch the biggest? And I went on YouTube because I was obsessed with bass. I loved the fight of a bass, trying to get a bass in. And so that kind of geared me up for it. He bought me a fishing pole, and I'm sure it's cheap. It's not. I think we got it at Walmart or something. I don't even know, okay. But it's pretty. It's pink. It's whatever. But at first, I wouldn't put a worm on the hook. I was like, you do it. Like, no. So he would do that. And then I just started going on YouTube because I wanted to catch these big bass. I'm like, well, let's go out to Lake Lanier, or let's go out here, and, whatever. And we don't know anybody with a boat. So everything was basically, we're fishing just basically right off shore, and that's crap. So, a couple of times I would do a charter. I learned how to use the wacky rigs to catch the bass, and I was good at it. And this one guy that took us out was just incredible and taught me so much about bass fishing that I became obsessed. And it was really more, lake fishing. That was what I did.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had the opportunity to do a deep sea fishing trip to Florida with a group of the guys that I worked with at work. One of our subcontractors paid for all of us to go on this day trip. And I caught 3 barracuda and just freaking loved it.
Nah.
I'm like, this is amazing. Like, I was terrified at first because of my original deep sea fishing trauma. And, I even, I got out there. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to conquer this fear, because that's the biggest thing for me since my divorce was, being married for 23 years, I became very lost and forgot who I was. I didn't know who I was. And I was just trying to find myself. And I've always been a very anxious person, due to some childhood traumas. And I'm just trying to find things to help me conquer fear. And the first fear was actually getting on that damn boat to go deep sea fishing in Florida. And what empowered me to do that, strangely enough, one was competition, because one of the guys that I work with is a hardcore fisherman. And, I'm in a male dominated industry in the first place. So as a woman, I have to constantly prove myself that I am just as good, if not better, than some of these people. And then you throw me into this trip where, we're going to go out and we're going to fish. And I was like, you know what? I'm going and I'm going to beat you. Like, this is happening. This is it. It's on. And that's what pushed me, was him, like, just really, he just riled me up. And so I forced myself to do it, and I had a blast.
That's awesome. So yeah, it almost took you nearly 10 years to try fishing again. And you probably, fishing in a pond, stocked pond is much different than jumping in and
different.
deep sea fishing for the first time. And I love how, the competition within you kind of drove you to go out and conquer your fear, because that's a big reason why I personally enjoy fishing, is also the competition aspect of it. When I grew up,
I just want to win.
Yeah, I grew up, fishing with my family. I had an older brother, and, me being the girl and the youngest one, I always wanted to, like, show him up and catch more. And didn't happen all the time, but when it did, that was always
awesome. You rub it in their face.
Yeah.
I mean, that's my boyfriend and I, whenever we went to his mom's, it was like, hey, are we going to your mom's this weekend? Like, can we go fishing? It's really nice out. It's not going to be raining. Can we go fishing? And he's like, good Lord, okay. And then we get there and I'm like, okay, it's on. And then it got to the point where I'd never caught a catfish. And he could bring in the catfish like nobody's business. Well, I'm bringing in the bass. He's bringing in the catfish, and his catfish were bigger, so he was winning in my eyes. So then I was going for the catfish. And I said, I know the paddle boat doesn't work. So his mom has a paddle boat, but it was broken. Like, the rudder was broken. So you could turn it the way you thought you were supposed to go, and then you're going in the opposite direction. But I said, I'm getting in this paddle boat and I'm going and I'm catching catfish. Give me that nasty, stinky, that disgusting smelling stuff that I can't remember, the blood, whatever.
Yeah.
And I'd go out there and I started catching catfish, and I'm going, ugh, what's next? Like, what's next?
Bigger, better. Yeah. So I love that you kind of mastered the bass fishing with the wacky rig. That's a just an awesome bait to catch bass with. Actually, that's what I caught my personal best on so far. Tournament fishing was the wacky rig. So That's awesome. But
Yeah, I love the wacky rig.
I'm curious, with your second deep sea fishing experience that was down in Florida, did you experience any of the nausea like you had on the first trip, or did you take
I didn't, and
Dramamine?
that was my biggest fear. Was I was so terrified because they were like, once we get out, there's no going back, and the ocean's different in Florida than it is. I'm like, okay, so they had me. I was scared, and I think if I remember, if I remember correctly, I took Bonine. So what it is,
Okay.
Bonine?
I think that's right. I've heard of that.
And yeah, I actually was, and that the day we went out, it was pretty rough.
Mhm.
And I was the only one out of the group that I was with. I think there were like 8 of us, including the crew, that didn't feel, I mean, aside from the crew, that didn't get any kind of nausea. By the end of the day, they were like, oh God, okay, you go ahead. And because, obviously we would take turns on strike, and if they were one by one starting to drop out because the guys that took us were from Jersey. So they're like, I'm starting to feel sick. Like, I don't know if I can do it and whatever. And I was like, hey, they're like, take my spot. No problem. Like, I got it. But unfortunately, it was just basically a bunch of barracuda that day. I think there was some, I think one of the guys caught a mahi. And then there was something else they caught again. It's several years ago and my brain sucks. I don't remember, but we did find a restaurant that would cook it up for us, and I did not eat any of it. Like, I'm like, I like to catch it and throw it back. I don't, no.
Yeah.
I don't like fish.
I can relate to that too. I'm mostly a catch and release, but I do like some good walleye. Grew up in Minnesota. That's a pretty bland fish. It doesn't have a lot of that fishy flavor.
Yeah.
But we did that.
I don't even try it.
Yeah. Well,
no.
We did that in Crystal River, Florida, a few years back. We went out with the captain and caught some redfish, and we kept one, and the captain filleted it for us, and there was a restaurant down the road and across the street that would cook it, so we took it straight there. So freshest fish, you could possibly.
Right.
And I did try it, and I didn't care for it. It had a different flavor to it that I didn't care for, but the person I was with said it was very, very good. So I guess
you're like, okay, yeah, sure.
What you like, but yeah, very cool. So I love that. And the fact that you didn't get seasick, it actually relaxes me. The rougher the water is, I feel more at ease. I'm like, this is so calming. So
yeah, you get to, I think I got my sea legs, I guess. Like, you learn to like move with the boat.
Yep.
Whereas before I didn't, I was clueless. And when you go on a boat with a bunch of people like that, that was like I don't want to say a party boat, but you got 30 people or 40 people on a boat, and it's just, you're bottom fishing. That's not deep sea fishing.
I'm sure the whole hook incident, had a lot to do with that too.
Yeah, it wasn't a whole, it was bad. And my daughter was also, one of my daughters went, and she was seasick the whole time too. She didn't even drop a line at all. She's like, I want to go back. We got to suck it up, Buttercup.
So I know you've had a bunch of fishing adventures since then, catching all different species of fish, but you had one huge adventure recently that I really want to focus on. And so let's talk about Samoa. Just, kind of walk us through planning this trip, like what led you to it, and everything that led up to going on this epic adventure that we kind of talked about earlier.
So like I said, I divorced in 2019. I'd always been mom. I was with him for half my life. I married him at 24. Before that were the party years. But then I was mom and wife for all this time, and then all of a sudden I was alone. My oldest was moved out with her fiance, or well, her boyfriend at the time. My youngest had just graduated from high school, and her dad begged me to let her stay with him in their home, their childhood home. And I moved into a 1-bedroom apartment and was just lost. And I pretty much stayed that way for a long time. And I, during COVID, I'd met my boyfriend during COVID. I had been laid off from a job right before COVID started. It was like January 13th of 2020. I was laid off, and then COVID hit within a couple of weeks. And I had met my boyfriend like the Friday. I met him on a Friday, and Monday is when I got laid off from my job. So, and then COVID hit, and my life turned upside down. So 6 months after I somehow landed the job that I'm at currently, there's been a lot of changes there. You know, sometimes we get thrown in to the deep end with no training. It was very stressful. We have a very high profile. Our biggest client is very high profile. Everybody knows them. I'm not going to say their name, but we do a lot of work for this company, and it can be really stressful. So between the stress of that, and you had some ups and downs with my kids from the divorce. My youngest was living with me and struggling. You know, she's trying to get through college. My oldest had a baby, and it was February of last year that I think everything just I think I just hit this point, and it's usually this time of year because my father passed away in September of 2004. For some weird reason, my family members tend to die between September and December. And so this time of year, that coupled with the Georgia cold and rain and whatever, and having been somebody that has dealt with manic depressive disorder, panic disorder, and every anxiety and you can imagine, I think everything just came to a head last February. And I was struggling with work. It's just a lot going on, major burnout. And I was on, I think it was the I think it's Women's Fishing is the name of the Facebook group, if I remember correctly. And I saw Skip's flyer or whatever for the Samoa trip. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, man, it was just a flyer. And I was like, oh, man, that was awesome. So I just reached out to her, or I made a comment, and then we reached out through Messenger to each other. And obviously I wanted more information. I didn't even know where the hell Samoa was. I had no clue. Right. And I'm like, this just sounds cool. And I'm one of those people that, especially when I'm going through a rough patch, I'm known to just go, just screw it. I'm going to go on vacation.
Yeah.
So I told her, I was like, I think I want to do this. And she, of course, she was like, you'd be our first international person. And I'm like ever? And she said, ever. And I said, what? Like from the US? And she goes, no, like from anywhere outside of Australia. Like everybody that's going is Australian or originally from New Zealand. Like there was nobody from this side of the world. And I thought, well, that would be cool. And she and I FaceTime or, Facebook Messenger video chatted, and she's just the most phenomenal person when it comes to just getting you pumped up. Like she is such an amazing human being. And I'm so glad that I got to meet her. And just that one conversation, I was so excited. And I said, you know what? I'm doing it. How do I do this? Like, I don't have the money at the moment. And she goes, now remember, this is Australian currency. This is, I think it was like 59.50 Australian. And I'm like, okay, what's the conversion? I have no idea. And I looked and I'm like, holy crap, it's like $3,700 or something. I said, that's nothing to go to the other side of the world, which at this point I still did not realize how far away it was. And I was like, count me in. I said, what do I have to do? And she said, send me the deposit. And she said, and I'll work with you. And she absolutely did, bless her, because had she not done what she did for me, I would have never been able to experience this trip. And then I send her this money and I go, I haven't even looked at flights. Like what? Because it included everything but flights.
Yeah.
And alcohol if you're a drinker. And I start looking at flights and I'm like, holy shit, what have I done? Like, I'm looking at, I'm tall. I'm all legs, but I'm like 5'8.5", but it's all legs. So for me to sit coach on a plane is incredibly uncomfortable. But I'm looking at, I had to go from Georgia to LA to Fiji, and then Fiji to Samoa. Going there and on the way back, they added another layover to Charlotte, North Carolina. So I'm like, man, okay. For coach, the cheapest tickets I could find were $1,900. I'm like, I'm going to go absolutely flipping broke, because the next one up was $7,000. Like, I guess I'm going coach, and I guess I'm going to have a 16.5-hour layover in Fiji, and I'm just going to have to make friends along the way.
Wow. And,
I amped myself up, but then at the same time, I would go through these periods of, man, is this a mistake? Am I going to be able to do this? Can I get my money back? Like, I got the trip insurance just in case. Skip told me, she said, get the insurance just in case something happens, because you never know between February and November what could happen. And I'm not going to lie, there were times that I was terrified and I thought about bailing. I really did. And there was also the thing that I had several people say to me, like, what the hell are you doing? You don't know these people. There's so many scams. You're sending money Western Union to Australia. Are you an idiot? And I'm like, I don't know. Maybe I am. So then everybody gets in my head. Even my boyfriend being like terrified for me. He's like, you're going alone. Like, do you know what you're doing? Do you realize that you're going, like, it's tomorrow there right now? Like, it's in the evening, while it's morning here, it's like 6 p.m. tomorrow, the next day there. And so I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to throw myself out there and, to hope that it is, I don't get human trafficked or murdered or, kidnapped, because nobody here is going to pay for me. I don't know anybody with money. And the time came, it was 3 days after the election that I left, which for me was perfect timing, because I was so sick of hearing about the election on both sides. Yeah. Like, just give me out. Yeah. Just let me go, and we'll see what I come back to. And I hopped on my flight to LA, and I made it there okay. And, the nerves were going, because then the next flight was 11 hours, and that was a long flight. I watched some movies. I was trying to prepare for jet lag. Got to Fiji, spent the whole day in Fiji, went sightseeing, terrified out of my mind getting into a car, because their taxis look like jalopies that are going to take you into the woods and kill you with a machete. You don't know who you're with. But I had, it was an experience, and it was something I was proud of myself, because it's something I would have never done before.
Yeah.
And then finally it was time to get on the flight to Samoa, which was like an hour and a half, 2-hour flight. And Tracy said, okay, when you get to Samoa, there's going to be a bus there to pick you up from the resort. They'll bring you here. And she said, I'm going to wake up and I'll meet you in the lobby at 3 a.m.
Oh, wow.
I'm like, okay. I left it Friday at 4 p.m. and I got to Samoa at 1:10 a.m. I landed at 1:10 a.m. on Monday, which was so weird to me. I'm like, it doesn't seem like I've been traveling as long as I've been traveling. I don't know how much I've slept. It was just, it's like I couldn't grasp what was happening. It was not real to me. And Skip met me in the lobby and she's like, you're going to come to this room for now. And then at 6:00, we're going to transfer over to a villa, that's 3 bedrooms, and we're going to do this and blah, blah, blah. And she said, you can come in here and you can take a nap. I'm like, okay. And we had a Facebook group chat with the rest of the girls, everybody chatted. So we kind of, I wouldn't say we knew each other, but we knew each other's names and, everybody was excited to meet each other. A lot of the girls already knew each other, were part of Skip's group. But there were some newbies. I did not take a nap. 6:00 rolls around. We get the villa. We go over there. We drop our stuff off. She's like, well, it's breakfast time. Let's just go eat breakfast and then you can come back and take a nap. I'm like, okay. By then I'd been up for well over 24 hours. I was feeling it, but I was also so excited because I'm in this beautiful country on the water. And I thought, am I going to survive here? Because they eat a lot of seafood. And I am a meat and potato, like give me a steak and potatoes and just crap junk food. Like in Fiji, when I should have experienced something new, I went to Burger King. And it wasn't like Burger King here.
Really?
It was, I don't even know. I think it was actually real chicken that wasn't processed, but it tasted like shit. So I don't know.
Not what you're
maybe
used
I like our processed stuff, I guess. At America, we have garbage, but it is what it is. So I went and ate breakfast and then I came back and there was another girl that had checked into the room already. And her name was Kim. And she was sitting out in the living room by herself. And I walked in, I was like, hey, how are you doing? I'm Tracy. And she's like, I'm Kim. And she's like, so we have 3 Tracys, right? And I was like, yeah. And it was actually during the time while we were waiting for the room to be transferred over, one of the other girls, Vonnie, had come in. And they're like, we got to come up with a nickname for you. And I said, you know what, just whatever, I'm open. And they're like, well, you're from Georgia, right? And I said, yeah. And they were like, what is that? And I was like, it's the peach state. And they're like, okay, peaches, peachy. What? So I'm peachy. That's, I was peachy for the rest of and I embraced it and it was great. I loved it.
Yeah.
So, but I sat up with her and finally at 9:30, she goes, I think I'm going to go get some breakfast. And I said, I think I'm going to crash. Like I'm dead. Like I've been up for well over 24 hours and I need to sleep. So they let me sleep until 2:30 in the afternoon. And then they came in and they said, Skip said you need to get up. You're not going to sleep tonight. And I'm like, I hate everybody. And it turned out, and it was amazing that Skip and I shared a room. And all of these women were just amazing. And I felt I was intimidated because a lot of them were business owners. I mean, Skip and most of the girls were business owners. And I'm going, I just work in construction. Like, I'm okay. But they fully embraced me and it was like a sisterhood from the beginning, which, I don't know over in Australia if it is like it is here in the States, but, women here tend to be, it is changing, thankfully. But we're pretty damn critical of each other. And it was really nice to be around women that were like, you know what, we're going to be friends and we're going to bring out the best in each other. And we really did. And that just gave me hope that for women in general, not just there, me with 7 Australian. But to come back here and be like, you know what, I want to help bring other women together and let's stop the cattiness and like we need to lift each other up. We get beat down enough as it is.
Mm-hmm.
We need to lift each other up. And I have a couple of other Facebook groups that I'm on that are into that whole thing. But, I came back with a whole different mindset because there was one other girl on the trip that she said, I hate women. Like I have no women friends, none. And the first day, you could tell how uncomfortable she was, that she wasn't comfortable with us. But by the day 2, we were all like, you'd think we'd known each other for years. And especially after that first day out fishing, we just had such an amazing time just pumping each other up. And even though day 1, I caught no fish, but it was just awesome being out on that water. The water was gorgeous. The South Pacific is unforgiving as hell. It's so rough. I mean, even it was a beautiful day, but damn, the water was rough. And I thought, all right, yep, I'm going to have bruises. You got thrown around a lot and you had to move fast. And it was just, I said, I didn't know what deep sea fishing was because Tracy said, this is sport fishing. We're going sport fishing. And I said, I have no idea what the hell you're talking about, but all right, I'm in. Let's do it, and it was a completely different experience from anything I'd ever experienced here. Deep sea fishing here, from what I know, the 2 times I've been, the first time I really don't count because but and even the second time it wasn't, we were trolling, but it wasn't anything like what we had there. The rigs were all, I mean, these huge fishing poles, and I'm just like looking at them going, damn, like we're going after some beasts. Like I've never seen anything like this before, that they're strapping me to a chair, and I'm going, what am I in for? But I was so excited about it.
It's awesome. Well, I love that the picture you painted of Skip. I think that speaks volumes that she, knew you were challenging yourself and going on this big adventure, and she sounds like really, took you under her wing to make sure that you were as comfortable as possible.
Oh, 100%. She said it would be life-changing. She said, you're going to come back a different person. And she was 100% right.
Wow. So talk about day 2. I know you didn't really, have much luck the first day, but let's hear what happened on day 2.
Day 2 was an awesome day. Day 2, I actually looked because I made notes. Like I opened my phone, like I gotta keep record of what I caught. So day 2, I started with 2 barracuda. I'm like, damn it, screw these barracuda. I don't like. They're just dumb. Like this is like the cockroach of the sea. I don't want to catch barracuda. Like that's not. I'm not after that. Like I went over there fully. Like I want a marlin. Like if I'm going, I want to go hard. Like I want a marlin. So, strike comes up after these barracuda. I had 2 barracuda, and then I'm on strike, and something hits, and that reel just freaking zipped, and it kept going and going and going. And they're like, just let it go. You just got to let it go and just wait till it stops. And I'm like, that son of a bitch is like 4 miles out at this point. Am I going to run out of like line? This thing is huge. So I just start reeling, and I had no idea what I was doing. And, Skip was awesome. She's like, okay, as you pull up, don't pull up too fast, slow and steady pull up. And she said, and then drop it down quick. But as you're dropping it down, you need to reel as fast as you can. And I'm like, okay. So, I'm strapped in. They're holding me in this chair. I could tell whatever it was big. And I'm reeling and reeling and reeling and reeling and reeling. And finally, they're like, oh, it's a shark. I'm like, what? Oh my God, I've got a shark. So I catch this shark. And to me, it wasn't too big. It was a shark, but it wasn't that big. So over there, of course, everybody here's like, oh, did you bring it on the boat? Did you eat it? And I'm like, no, they don't bring them on the boat. It's too dangerous. So, cut them loose, let them go. My next strike, and they had said, one of the guys, because we had two boats, one of the skippers had said, you're not going to have much. We shouldn't see many sharks. It's not really big out where we're going to be. So next strike, same thing. The line takes off, and I'm struggling. And I remember my boss before I left. This is the guy that is so hardcore competitive with me. And he was so jealous that I was going on this trip. He's like, if somebody helps you, if they even touch that rod, it's not yours. It's not yours. You can't take credit for it. And I'm like, okay. So I'm like, nope, I got this. And, I'm struggling. I think it probably took me 25 minutes to get this one in. And I finally get it in, and it's an even bigger shark. I mean, this shark looked huge to me. And Tracy, or Skip, she's like, that's probably 80 kilograms. And I'm like, what's 80 kilograms? I don't know what's right. 80 kilograms. And I think it's like 175 pounds, maybe ish, something like that, I think is the conversion.
Wow.
And I'm like, holy crap, I just caught another shark. And one of the ladies on the trip, her name's Sharky, because she catches all the sharks. And she wasn't on the boat with me that day, but they were like, oh, you're going to give Sharky a run for her money. I'm like, I don't want sharks. I want a marlin, or I want a mahi. There were certain things like I want a yellowfin.
Yeah.
And, some of the girls were bringing in Spanish mackerel, and there were these different fish coming on board that I've never seen before. And finally, I think, was day 2. My very last catch of the day seemed to be something big. I was struggling with it. And then all of a sudden the line, it didn't go slack, but I'm like, I think I lost it. But I kept reeling. And I'm sure you saw the picture on Facebook. It was a Spanish mackerel, and I just brought back the head. So I think it would have been a decent sized mackerel, but I'm going to assume one of my sharks that I ticked off for catching it took him out.
The
so
tax
day 2,
man, they call it.
Yeah, day 2 was exciting. Just, because here it was like a big deal to catch a shark. So I'm like, I want to, catching 2 sharks in a day. That's something to write home about.
Yeah.
So day 2 is great because I caught a total of 5. Well, if you count the head.
Of course.
And then, and that night we took our catches. We had some mackerel. We had some tuna, and we took it back to the resort, and they prepared it. I didn't like it at all. I tried it. I'm like, nope, I will eat the banana chips in the room. No thanks. Day 3, I think we switched up groups. And I ended up, much to my dismay at that time, I was very nervous because I ended up on a boat with all the competitive anglers. These women were all competitive anglers out of Australia. And I thought, there's no way. Like, I have no idea what I'm doing. And what am I going to do with these 3 women that are amazing anglers, right? And they just really, they were awesome. And I was backup strike, because we always had a backup just in case another one popped. with the tuna, if there's one, there's generally a school, somebody else is going to get hit. And one of the girls, the girl that was on strike, Amelia, she's reeling hers in, and almost immediately after hers hit, we got another hit, and they're like, "Peachy, you're up." And I'm like, "Crap!" And she's amazing. She is freaking amazing. And so we reel in, and we get them in about the same time, and we both caught yellowfins.
Awesome.
So that was my first yellowfin, and it was awesome. And later on in the day, I brought in my mahi, and that was, I think, that was just it for me. Like, there was nothing that could top that outside of a marlin. But, catching that mahi, and she was beautiful and heavy and just like, whoa. And we took her back and ate her for dinner. And it was freaking amazing. Like, I'm like, I hate fish, but is it because I caught it that I am enjoying this so thoroughly? We took it to this restaurant, and they, it was big enough. There were 9 of us. We each had 2 decent size fillets, and they topped them with these giant prawns and this lemon cream sauce on a bed of risotto, and it was just phenomenal.
I'm sure there's something to, enjoying your own catch for sure.
Yeah, that's something I never thought I would do, because I hate fish, and it was amazing. And maybe, who knows, because we had mahi when I was in Florida, but it was different. It was just different. It was definitely prepared differently. So like this restaurant we were at in Samoa was it was a really nice restaurant, and I did the conversion from Tala in Samoa to US, and I thought, this is a steal. It was like $19 American.
Oh, wow. Well, I definitely think the way that they prepare it and all of that makes a huge difference as well. I've had experiences like that. I don't eat fish much at all, but I do enjoy walleye. And I remember one experience up near Lake Erie where we went to a restaurant, and that was like the best walleye I've ever tasted. And a lot of it had to do with the way that they prepared it there. But so I've caught a couple mahi, and what struck me the most was reeling it in and seeing it for the first time in the water, and the vibrant color.
Yes, they're beautiful. Like, I almost felt bad. Like,
you're right. Yeah.
It's such it's one of the most amazing fish I've ever seen in my life. And the water there is so beautiful, and to see that fish coming up was just, I was just in awe. Like, I almost felt bad. And then the fact that I ate it later
and enjoyed it, though. I mean,
and thoroughly enjoyed it. I mean, it was, none of it went to waste.
Yeah, and that's important. But they're, I think, on this earth for some of that reason, anyways, for us to be able to get nutrition and whatnot from them as a resource. So
absolutely.
But well, that's very cool. Thank you for sharing that. And so, was it the next day that y'all went out, changed it up, and did snorkeling?
Snorkeling was Friday. We did 2 days. I think we did 2 days off. And on the second off day, we went snorkeling with giant clams. And like, when I think of clams, that's the only quote unquote seafood I will eat is fried clams. And when I say that I'll eat fried clams, we're talking about Captain D's fried clams. So I don't know I never knew what they look like. And I don't swim. I'm terrified of the water. I mean, I can keep myself afloat. The ocean scares me. What's in it, I don't know what's in there. If I can't touch the bottom, it's terrifying. I knew there were 2 other women that were, pun intended, in the same boat with me, with being not able to really swim and being terrified of water. And they both were determined, because they had gone snorkeling at the resort a day or 2 before, and they were both just determined that they were going to do this. And I thought, you know what? I've come halfway across the world. I've pushed myself this far. I'm just gonna, I'm gonna do the best I can. I'm just gonna give it my best shot. If I don't make it, I don't make it. If I only make it out so far and I have to come back, then that's what I do. I had bought one of the full face snorkel masks, which for anyone that's scared of snorkeling or is not great at swimming, I would highly, highly recommend this full face snorkel mask, because my biggest fear, like, I can't go underwater without holding my nose. Well, that defeats the purpose of even trying to snorkel. So that's why I did that. And it was a good distance out. I got in and I swam out to this. There was a line that, like a rope that you could swim out to. And then they had told us that if you went a little bit farther, you could see sea turtles. And I really wanted, like, that. I love turtles. My mom is a huge fan of turtles. I wanted nothing more than to get out there to be able to tell my mom, I got to go. I swam with sea turtles.
Yeah.
But by the time I had gotten out to that rope, I was well past the point of being able to stand up. I was exhausted. I think jet lag was totally set in, and I just didn't have the steam. But I looked and I'm like, I'm not going to be mad at myself, because I made it all the way out here.
Yeah.
And I'm looking how far back I have to swim, and I'm like, okay, I can do this. I've got to find a way, because they were all good. The rest of them were going out, and not everybody went. I think there were only 4 or 5 of us that went that day. And so I just started making my way back to shore, and these, just looking at the clams were, the pictures that we have of them don't even do them justice. I mean, some of them seemed almost as big as I was.
Wow.
They were just massive. And I think that the oldest one they said they had there was like 27 years old. So it was really cool. And not just seeing them, but also seeing these beautiful fish that I had no idea what they were. I mean, there were some really funky looking ones. I couldn't tell you what they were. They're blue starfish. And I marked snorkeling, like, okay, I can check snorkeling.
Yeah.
I have snorkeled. I have conquered snorkeling. I can now say that I've done that. So
that's awesome. Not just snorkeling like you would do in the Bahamas or something. Like, this is
right.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, congratulations on pushing yourself and doing that, because a lot of people would just say, nah, I'm not a good swimmer, I don't want to do it. You guys go have fun. I was sore
too, because
yeah,
after we had done 2 days of this fishing, and everybody had told me, you better work out before you leave. You need upper arm strength. And I mean, by the time we got to snorkeling, my arms were still kind of like jello.
Yeah,
like,
I'm sure.
They were wore out.
Yeah.
My muscles were tapped, but I'm like, I'm doing it.
Yeah.
So.
If people have never experienced deep sea fishing, sport fishing like you guys did, you have no idea how much it takes out of you. Just to reel in one fish, let alone
I had an idea. I was like, these are really big fish. This is no joke. Like, this is, and I thought, like, I'm 141 pounds. How am I going to bring in, I brought in a shark that was, 30 something pounds heavier than me. Like, how did I do that? So
that's awesome.
That was cool.
Well, I love hearing about this trip and how it's changed your life. Talk a little bit about that. I mean, so, post trip, you're back. You've kind of talked about it a little bit,
I didn't
but
want to come back. I
I
really
bet.
didn't. You know, Tracy and I had multiple conversations. Skip and I had multiple conversations. She was like, just move to South Australia. You can just move. And I'm like, I got a grandbaby. My granddaughter's turning 1. I've got a grandbaby on the way. My daughter's pregnant with her second. And I said, if I didn't have my children here who are my life and my grandchildren, I probably would be like, okay, boyfriend, you can come with, or I might have to go because, I don't know. It'd be real tempting to, go over there. And, now she posted yesterday that she's got a spot on her team. And I thought, damn it, I want to go. But, you
Yeah.
know, life just isn't going to allow that for me at the moment. So I think I came back with, obviously came back with this new group of amazing women. Like I felt like I was leaving my best friends.
No.
That we had just such an amazing connection. And, we had a night that we went out to dinner and I don't want to say it wasn't a band by any means, but they had like a keyboard set up with its own little beat playing and, a couple of Samoan people singing and a couple of the girls got up on the dance floor and I, I don't know how got a wild hair and I got up there with them and I'm looking out in the bar area and I'm seeing there's all these women and they're like clapping and smiling and whatever, but I was like, okay, I don't know what I'm doing, but here I go. And I went to every table in that bar and every single woman that was in that bar, I forced them, some of them I drug. I got every one of those women out to the dance floor. And I think Skip actually, there was a girl that got some footage of it for us. We had every single woman in that bar area on the dance floor dancing, you know, nobody knowing anybody. And it was so amazing that on the resort, so many people had heard about the women anglers that were on the resort. All the women that were there visiting thought that this was so cool that there were women anglers there. They're like, so you're women, like you're fishermen? And we're like, no, we're women anglers. It's not fishermen anymore. It's not just something that men can do. Like,
Yeah.
and that was one thing for me going out there, going on this trip initially. I had all these men telling me, you're never going to be able to, you're not going to get any, you're not going to be able to reel anything in. Are you crazy? Look how small you are. And I thought, screw you, like, screw you. So, it was go to work and, I had some trophies with me and I was like, hey guys, look. Oh, hey, look at my shark. And they're like, oh, did you have help? I'm like, no, I didn't. Look. So it was awesome to come back to that. I hated leaving the girls and, we all talked via messenger as we could on the way back, and they're all, make sure you let us know when you get to each stop because, my flights back totaled about, with layovers and everything, it was about 40 hours. So, and I met some really amazing people in the airports, and I really got out of my comfort zone and talking to people that, just striking up a conversation with strangers. Cause, I'm not the type of person that, or I am the type of person that if I see somebody out in public, especially a woman, and she's alone, like say at a restaurant or whatever, she's by herself. I'm like, oh, that's sad. But no, it really isn't necessarily.
Right.
This is a woman that's just strong enough to go out and do something on her own.
Mm-hmm.
And I never thought of it that way until I took this trip. And I'm like, with all of my anxiety and panic and whatever, and I can tell you, crazy enough, even like just day to day, in any given week, I'm prone to have a panic attack. I have anxiety attacks fairly frequently. I did not have one anxiety attack or panic attack on that entire trip. Not one. And I don't know where that came from. Maybe just sheer adrenaline. I don't know. But since I've been back, I've noticed that it's different. And I think maybe I have this renewed confidence in myself. Because, a lot of anxiety is from fear. Mm-hmm. And I think I conquered a lot of fears in doing this trip, for sure, going halfway across the world. Anxiety is so much less now. Wow. Well, and now it's just like, okay, what's next? And like, when do I get to go fishing again? Well, like that. I want to do that again. Like, there's never going to be fishing unless I get to, and we've had the conversations, like, I now know 7 women in multiple different areas of Australia that have told me, you have a place to stay. If you can get here, you have a place to stay and we'll go fishing. But, I don't think I could ever have an experience like that one ever again. Like, I truly feel that was a once in a lifetime experience, and it has completely changed me.
Wow. Well, that's amazing. And, you have all these new lifelong friends now that, that's invaluable. So
absolutely,
whatever you had to pay to experience this, I'd
do it all over again. I look back, that, a lot of times I have buyer's remorse over certain things because I can tend to, if I get in the mood, I'll buy something. I'm like, damn it, shouldn't have done that. Yeah. And this was, for me, this was a lot of money. I don't, I make a decent living, but, I'm also, I have a 23-year-old that's, she graduates from college in May. And, I have my 26-year-old married daughter with my grandbaby and the second one on the way. And, their dad is not present with them. So I feel a pressure to do a lot for them or try to do a lot for them. So I do as much for them as I can. So a lot of times I go without. So this, I had a little bit at first, like, should I do this? Like, and finally it was like, you know what? You deserve this after all these years of, you've raised your kids and you've done this. I've always been a people pleaser and done for everybody else. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do something for myself. And I could not have done anything better for myself than doing that. And meeting Skip was like, she's a 1 in a million person. And, you said that it was probably one of your favorite podcasts. Mm-hmm. Like, she's literally, I consider her a sister at this point. She's like a big sister to me, and she's such an inspiration, and she brings women together in ways you just can't even imagine. What she does is so amazing. And, she and I have spoken about, she wants me to help her try to bring more American women over there to experience these trips with Skip. And I'm like, I don't know how the hell I'm going to do it, but I will do everything in my power to do so, because it is life-changing. And I'd encourage anybody that even has an inkling of wanting to do something like this to do it. I've got several friends that don't even fish, and they're like, I think I want to do that. Like, it just sounds
Yeah.
so amazing. And I said, it is. It's just, I
That's awesome.
can't, I don't have enough words for it.
Well,
Like,
you're
I'm reliving it again. You've helped me relive this trip. And I'm like,
Well,
damn it, I want to go back.
I'm glad I
Like,
could, but I mean, you're an inspiration, and so I think this episode and hopefully the conversation that we just had with Skip will really, really inspire some women to take a step and look at some of these upcoming trips. It looks like she's got a lot going
she's got a lot
on.
in the next 2 years.
Yeah,
Yeah. And it's,
so
I mean, even not even that, just, I mean, it's, you don't even have to take a big trip, it's, you just
yeah.
got to come out of your shell sometimes. And I think women, we've been conditioned to think that we're these delicate, little flowers that we can't do anything for ourselves, and we've got to depend on men to hold us up or to help push us along, and we don't. We really don't. And that's it. I'm not taking shots at men. I mean, I have a boyfriend I love dearly. He's amazing, and I love him. But at the same time, it's so empowering to know that you can stand on your own 2 feet, and you don't. You can do things for yourself. I mean, it's it. We're not weak.
Right.
We're not. So it's just, you just got to find that strength, and we all have it. It's just pushing yourself to break out and push forward to find it. It's there.
Well, this conversation, your story has been a testament to that. And so with that, we'll kind of start wrapping it up. What I want to know now is what's coming up next for you? What's next on your fishing bucket list?
Honestly, Samoa 2026 is already planned for Skip.
Awesome.
And if there is any way in hell that I can be on that trip, I will be on that trip, and I will have my marlin. I would love nothing more to be back in Samoa. It's an absolutely beautiful place, and it was just magical for me. And that I would love to do that, but it's, but between now and then, just, as much fishing as I can do. And, I am still a very basic, inexperienced angler. And, even when it comes to like bass fishing, I want to learn more about that. I would love to get into competition and stuff like that, but I don't know where to start. So it's just, I just have to figure it out.
Yeah. Well, you can always look into the Lady Bass Anglers Association that I was a part of. I think they've got a great schedule coming up in 2025. Trying to think of where all they're going, but I think the very first tournament's coming up soon, and it's out your way. But it's going to be cold, and we talked about that offline a little bit, so I totally understand. But yeah, that's always something to look into for the future. But I wish you all the best in your future fishing experiences, and I really appreciate you taking some time to share your story, and especially this life-changing trip. And I hope that it really inspires other women to look into it, or look into, even if it's not traveling halfway across the world, maybe
Right.
maybe something a little,
even within your own state.
Yeah,
just get out there and just try something new. And I appreciate you for listening to my constant diarrhea of the mouth, because that's what I tend to do when I get loosened up. So
I love it.
I appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, Angie. I appreciate it.